Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, and welcome to the Real Talk Show. I'm your host Nasir with my co-host
Junaid.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Today we'll be talking about the hot topic at the moment, which is on the news and the media, which is Black Lives Matter. And we'll be talking about what led up to this point in time. So before we start, we had a clip. I don't know if it's possible to see that clip, but anyway, there might be technical issues. What we want to deal with at the moment is George Floyd straight away. George Floyd was a black man, African American. He had 5 children, and he was on his way to his local supermarket, as it were. And in that supermarket, he was accused of presenting a $20 counterfeit note. So then the cashier, whoever served him, they called the police and they arrested him outside the shop. It was later confirmed by the shop owner himself that George Floyd was a very good customer. He had no issues with him, and there's been no trouble to date. Anyway, some of us seen those clips about him getting arrested. A police officer put his knee on his neck. George Floyd cried out, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," as has now become a hashtag. And then he subsequently passed away. So, Junaid, if I can bring you in, why is this topic, or why has it blown over, as it were, now? Because we know racism is not nothing new in America, and in this country also.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Nasir, and introducing the topic for today. So I think that if you think about Black Lives Matters, I think previously, I think why it's blown over this time round, because the Black Lives Matters in terms of demos and people voicing their concerns happened quite a few times over the last few years. And if you think about it, nothing's actually changed in institutionally and in the hierarchy. If anything, it seems as though things have gone worse. And obviously we know the current situation with the presidency in America and in our own kind of country.
Barack Obama, he himself was a black president. Didn't he change much?
But I'm talking about the last couple of years. So since Black Lives Matters, if you think about a couple of years ago, these protests have been quite consistent in different parts of America for various reasons. And when the police officer shot that youngster who was in the neighborhood, and I think that prompted similar kind of demonstrations. I think this time around, and I think it's been a kind of a global phenomenon. But I think for me, I think today, I mean, we could see what's happening on the TV, etc. What I want to really kind of bring it to is home to us as individuals, us as living in London, living in parts of the UK, and what does it mean for me as a Muslim? What does it mean for me as an Asian Muslim? And yeah, how do I take all of this in? And what is it that, because for me, I always say, Brother Nasir, is that sometimes we could, rant and rave about things, but you have to always be, for me, there has to be an end goal, and it has to be solution focused. Okay. So, after all of this, do we all just go back home after all these demos, etc., and just, go back to normality? Or do we actually make real change, and how do we go about doing that? And that's my real kind of, how can I say, vision in anything that we do.
Yeah, so, what's interesting about this whole episode is that, America, when we look at its history, it was founded on back of slavery in particular from West Africa, but in general, that's where they were, sort of exported from, human labor, as it were. Slaves were taken from West Africa. and then they were brought over to America. Now, what's interesting is that despite, America having so many famous black African Americans, we know Michael Jordan, just so many, black presidents. Despite this, they have a systematic system in place that is, that is racist. The judicial system, it's basically to a point where a white police officer knows he can get away with it, and this gives him almost, to act with impunity. So, can people really change a system that's been around for almost 400 years? Really? I mean, in America, you still got places called, quote unquote, Negro this, Negro that, Negro, Creek Hill. I'm not kidding. You can Google some of these places. But can people change a system that's designed to judge people in this way?
Yeah, I mean, I will bring it back even closer to home. Do you think that what if we go back? I mean, this is not. I think I was having kind of a discussion with you previously. This is not something that is new. Racism is not new. If you think about the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was slavery then, and then if you think about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's last sermon, why was he making a specific mention and quote of a white man does not have superiority over a black man, and vice versa? Why would he make that speech? So for me, inequality in terms of race and color existed back then, and even if we bring it even closer, like within our own culture, within our own mind, that we somehow see dark skin as ugly, as inferior, and it's something that is within our own, I think, mentality. That I don't think so. We talk about institutes, etc., but within our own culture, within our own, like some brothers might be able to relate. You go and view a wife, yeah. You go for a proposal, yeah, right, and then your mom looks at the sister and says, "Oh, khala," meaning like she's dark skinned, etc. And they always go for the fair skin. Where does that mentality come from? And there's racism in that. So I think there's some things that we need to stain from the offset. That that black, fair isn't beauty, and that is we are all Allah's creation in different forms. And I think as individuals, have we accepted that? And then we work our way up. We work our way up is to, when I was talking about change, we need to stop having this kind of inferior complexalities in terms of, like, if we think that we want to go for a role or a job, then we should be confident in doing that. If we feel that we need to challenge the system, then we need to do that, and not be held back because we feel like we are individuals of a different skin. So this thing that's happening in America, the why it's, your first question, why it's blown out of proportion, is because people's had enough. People's had enough of all the injustice, not just in America, in this country. I think Brexit was an example. I think they talk, when I was listening to the radio station, they kept on going on about, the police brutality is not as bad as this country, etc. That's not the point. The point is this country, is racism still here in this country? And if you look at the statistics, it's still there. You look at the prison, even if you look at sentencing of individuals, it seems like people of color and black people get harsher sentences.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned about our own community and about the skin tone. And I can see, your skin tone is obviously is on the more favorable side of things from our community's perspective here. So I have to ask you a question. I have to ask you a serious question. How many times have you used Fair and Lovely?
Never. I don't use no bleaching cream, bruv.
No, I mean seriously, going back to it, it is a problem. You know what's interesting is that there was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was two mighty companions, great in stature. Bilal radiallahu anhu, who was obviously from originally from what is now Ethiopia, and there was another Sahaba whose name of Abu Dar, and he was an Arab, and they got into a discussion, and they got heated, and then they lost temper. And this is Sahaba, not like jokers like you and me. This is the real deal, right? Real people. Yeah, the cream of the cream. And what happened was Abu Dar, he lost really, he lost it. And obviously, our friend Shaitan is always there trying to, throw fuel to the fire. And he said, "Oh, son of a black woman." And then the moment he said that, the very moment he said that, he realized the gravity of his statement. And he just said, "Oh, Bilal, give me your feet, I will kiss it." As in, I honor you, I love you. And what I said was unacceptable. So Bilal radiallahu anhu, he got upset naturally. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Dar, he said, "Are you jahil? Are you ignorant of these statements? Because this is a statement of an ignorant person." So from Islam, we are not allowed to forget these statements. We can't be racist. It's a sin. But despite this, right? I want to focus on the Black Muslim community. Very often we got friends, we got brothers, we got friends who tell us this sometimes, that they feel alienated in our community. I mean, it's all very well, going on Facebook and saying, hashtag Black Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff, and putting your screen all black and making all these presentable arguments and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is, are we being opportunistic here? Are we, just jumping on the bandwagon because everyone else is doing it? So, hey, I want, because you don't want to look at a place. Is there not, think of that? Because on the other hand, when we go to the masjids, how many black people do we see in our committees? How many black imams do we see? How many muazzin? How many people from the black community do we see taking a lead? Some masjids don't even have black people, because it's okay. Geographically, I can understand that. But, there's a Somalian masjid and a Bengali masjid, for example,
I think I agree with you on that case, because that's a good question in terms of even with all those, because I initially I'll be one of those individuals that when all this Black Lives Matters kind of came out, I had my status was updated with all lives matters, so I was highlighting in terms of all the injustice of Palestine, Kashmir, and Myanmar and all that. And I was thinking, why is it all of a sudden that this has happened and we're just concentrating and we're forgetting? And what I realized is that I put that out because some people who never spoke out before, okay, all of a sudden they're active on social media, okay, they're active and they're out there. And I was thinking, these individuals never speak out against all of these other. So I just wanted to remind them. At the same time, I think coming back to your original question is that we as a community, we need to look at ourselves as well. So when this Black Lives Matters, it's not just about what's happening. What does it mean? What does it mean for me and you as a Muslim when we're in the masjid? Like you said, in the masjid, in our mosque community, how many we in our congregation? I'm sure you will see that like half and half is black. Nigeria, Ghana, all of those. But how many of these brothers are representative of our masjid community? How many of them are even representative of our Jama'ah or any kind of dawah organization that we work for? And you would see that the numbers are low. So I think it's true. It's opportunistic. All of these people are coming from the bandwagon and saying that, but do they really go back and say, okay, what does our representation? I think this is one of the things I was going to ask you. Some people out there, and initially I was, that they said, oh, it's not about Black Lives Matters, it's all about all lives matters. What's your view on that?
Yeah, so funny enough, I did put that on Facebook, and this is actually see, everyone will know this now, which is actually to do research for this, which is I was trying to really hard actually trying to see the other side of this, quote unquote, the racist, the 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 anti, if you were anti these people, and I thought to myself, you know, what is it? But also, as in, is this just for black people? What about the brown people, the yellow people, the other people? What about them? What about this? And what it is, if we really educate ourselves, we'll know very quickly the extent to which black people suffered in America, UK, everywhere really, and all because of a gift from Allah that they've got, which is i.e. their skin color. And what's interesting is that I found during this reading, I found this story from America. I think it was 1944, and this child. Sorry, I got cut off there. Someone was trying to call me. So do you know? Can you hear me? Do you know they there?
Yeah, sorry. I think they're hacking into our system, bro.
Yeah. So everyone's welcome. The boys from MI5. You don't wanna concentrate on me. You want to concentrate on the other guy. He's the dodgy one. But
Look
but
at that there, bro. Dodgy. I've got slick on today, man.
yeah, you look very shiny for some reason, bro. Must be with that tahajjud you praying.
Tahajjud at 8 o'clock, mashallah.
Okay, so what I was saying is that in America in 1944, there was this boy. He was 14 years old. He was accused of murdering these two white girls. One was 7, the other one was 11. They were sisters. And then so he was obviously wrongfully accused. Nevertheless, they electrocuted him. And when they took him to that chair, he was carrying a Bible at the time. So when they took him to that chair, they realized the chair, the head bit he was a bit too low for that. So guess what these people done? Christian America. They put the Bible on the chair and they got the boy to sit on top of the Bible, right, just so he can be a little bit higher. And then they killed him in that way. Later on, they found out that he was actually indeed innocent. It was actually someone else. But this is the system that America has, which is it's always been anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-anything really. It's just and the recent election of Trump proved this. And Britain is not far from it. One of the reasons why Boris Johnson won was because he wanted to do Brexit. On back of Brexit, despite immigration playing a huge part in this country, you just have to go to your local doctor just to find out how many of them are actually from this country and white.
It's coming, and it's an interesting point you make there as well. It's like even and it's one of like such like if you think about the time that this Black Lives Matter come during COVID, where even like the Public Health England, they published a report and they said that the BME community they died disproportionately during this time, but they didn't highlight why. They didn't look at all of that, and that's what you normally look at in a report. And if you think about it, when I was out, I've been going to work every single day since this COVID started. And what was interesting is when I'm on road and when I'm out, the only people, and this is not like only people that you see, a majority of the people you see on road are people of color.
Mm.
And that was very distinct. That was very distinctive on the bus, on the shops that are open. The people on the people who drive in the cabs, the hospital nurses, it was people of color, and that was quite starking to see that, and I think it's just highlights, the fact that race is still apparent in terms of
Yeah.
the inequalities, the injustices is still there. Even about these protests, I don't know if you've seen recently, bro. Like all of these protests has been happening, yeah. Okay, and my guess is most of these in London, they were peaceful. Yeah, people just went out and wanted to kind of vent some of their frustration and anger at the system. What did the media highlight most in the last couple of days? The little riots. Yeah.
Yeah.
5-second riots that happened. Little skimmers here and they said this is not on. They've come out and people had hours and hours of peaceful protest. So for me, it's still racist, bro. They are still highlighting. If you think about it, these people out there, they're demonstrating for hours and ends of the day. And the bit that the news headline is on that day is that there was a bit some bottles thrown. Yeah. And these individuals, they're on riot gear and etc. They're heavily armored up. Some bottles being thrown, and that's it. That's the headline, not the fact that 50,000 people turn up and not happy with the system. Not looking at that, but that's what the headline is. Yeah. So what does that do? The message gets lost. Yeah. The message gets lost, and what they're going to do is they're going to go heavy-handed on these people, just like they're going in America. They don't want to address what the core issues. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed over there. Nothing's changed in this country. And also within our own mentality, like we touched in previously, we still have this notion of, black and what that means. And I think we all need to have a different view, go back, reflect what that means to us. We need to ask that question to us. I think I need to ask myself, am I racist? It's all good and say I'm not racist. I really need to ask myself that.
So go on then and ask yourself that. Are you racist?
No, alhamdulillah. I think I'll turn around and say I'm not racist, and that's not because skin color doesn't mean anything to me. I think what my most important thing to me is an individual's character, honesty, and the way they behave, and and I've seen it in both walks. The skin color hasn't never played a part.
Alhamdulillah, yes, that's interesting. It's very easy to say no. It's very easy to say no, but really, I think sometimes we do fall into that category, whether we like it or not. I mean, look at the Sahaba. They're beautiful people, but look, in the moment of rage, in the moment of, look what Shaitan can do to you. And I think that's what happens to many of us, is that we have to really be careful, because in the moment of rage, in the moment of anger, we can do things, we can say things which we regret. But it's a shame our guest is not here. Tommy Robinson, I'm sure he would have disagreed with you. He didn't turn up. Never mind. So, what I was going to say is that, if our racist guests did turn up, is they would say, look, one of the reasons why London's got so much, high proportion of, a disproportion of COVID victims is because London is, it's got so many colored people, as it were, so many ethnic minorities and so on. So that would be, that's one of their arguments. And they say, look, but the reality is, if you look at London, the way being a city in itself, any city in the world, right, is the congestion of the way people live. And ethnic minorities in particular, we tend to live in a setting that we got, grandparents, brothers, siblings, sometimes we hear entire hamlets, 2-bedroom house, 7 people. How are you going to practice social distancing in a place like that? You see. So some of it, the environment we live in, plays a huge part. And like you said, some of the jobs we do are what you would call key worker jobs. And, some of it is low paid, but nevertheless, these are key workers. And as a
So
result of that, it's played, it's played into that situation where people are suffering from COVID. But going back to our topic, which is racism, America, Britain, France is another country. What's interesting is that despite its World Cup, let's admit it, the 2 World Cups in my time that it's won, 1998 and recently the last one, were actually African Americans. Some of them were Muslim, some of them Christian, some of them didn't really believe anything, but were by and large, if you look at the French team, were actually heavily, by colored people. So their success was on immigration. But in itself, if you go to France or speak to French people, if you've got any relatives or cousins over there, they'll tell you about the racism that exists. So is racism a white man's burden?
No. But I think it's not a white man's burden, but the people who run the policies, run the top jobs, who have a direct impact on our lives, unfortunately, are white. And I say unfortunately because it doesn't help the situation, isn't it? So at the end of the day, but some people might say, well, Barack Obama was the president of America, But then having said that, when Barack Obama was president, what did he really do for the black people? What did he do for the African American? And I think you can pose questions like that. So he could have been institutionalized himself. Mentality. But I think coming back to your question, and I think when I was thinking about who's going to discuss this topic, I was thinking, okay, what is going to be useful for our viewers? Yeah, because we could all go, like me and you, we could both go on YouTube, and there's loads of videos. Correct or not? There's so many videos like celebs, Joshua, the boxer coming on, and he's talking about, etc., etc., and then you got full of these people. They got a view on it. So I was thinking, what angle? What is it that we're going to bring in the table? Does that make sense? What is somebody, the people who are listening to us today, yeah? What are they going to go away with and think, what these brothers were talking about made sense? Because, to be honest, a lot of points we covered, me and you heard it somewhere. True or not?
Yeah, we have.
So, I guess where I'm trying to get is that...
you drink some water?
No, I had some water. I'm having tea.
Joking. I'm only joking. I'm just trying to throw you off. Go on, carry on.
No, I was having tea, bro. Now, I guess, whilst you most probably already thought about this, and so what is it that our listeners are going to take away from us, bro? Like, what are we trying to get them to think?
Now, I think we need to get our listeners to, first of all, understand that this is not a black problem, despite its long history. That this is actually, to some of these people who, and let's admit it, it's not just racism is not from white to non-whites. It could be from brown to black. It could be from black to yellow, from whatever, right? Because there is that thing as well. Racism in itself is a problem, and everyone carries this problem. Now, reason why we see that in the West is because they've got this mentality through their history of empire that, that they were superior. Their history teaches them that they ruled the world, they educated the ill-educated, they civilized the world and all this kind of stuff. But little did they, if they only started a few hundred years before, they would not realize that center of power, center of education, center of learning, center of influence was actually somewhere else, far away from the Europe and its dark ages. It was actually in the Muslim world. And, it was in places like Mali in Africa and so on. one of the richest men in history was Musa Mensa, who's actually a king from Mali, a black man. So what I'm trying to get to is that this problem of racism is embedded in a way through the education system, through the justice system, through the way that it's sort of the media portrays it. Like you gave a perfect example before. There's protest going on, and naturally the media picks up on who some of these kids who've broken into shops, and obviously stealing's wrong from Islam, from our own moral compass is wrong. They're stealing, trainers, they're stealing TVs, they're stealing PlayStations, whatever, they're stealing, right? And it was ironic. I was with someone, and we're driving past Oxford Circus, and the big night town there, it had all boarded up, thinking there's going to be a riot and they're going to come for our shoes. Well, I've got news for you, Nike. If your trainers want 100, 200, 300 pounds, no one would need to steal them, would they? So there is that element as well. Obviously, there's education, there's poverty. We talked about housing. All of these play into part of this, and there is an element of that.
And there could be just touching up on it. I mean, I don't want to go on a kind of a, because I think if all of us do our research, we could find all of that. But even if you look at the housing situation, so they know that there's a housing crisis in terms of not everybody could afford to go and buy a house, and Islamically around a mortgage, etc. There's huge discussions around that as well. So, but what are they doing? If you look at every single boroughs, they are building these posh apartments, okay, and allocating like 5 or 6 to the council, and rest of them they are selling off, okay. Even that, that where there's a shortage of housing, okay, people are overcrowded, etc., and they could afford to give a piece of land to build luxury apartments, luxury houses. Why are there some of this on a bigger scale allocated to families who need it? It alleviates a lot of these housing problems. But again, it comes down to when you set up and when you look at like how they do the community planning and etc. It's all planned. It's all institutionalized, from the education system to the job market to the media. The media are the bigger culprits. I think they're the biggest ones that inflame racial tension and inflame, how they portray black people, especially obviously the Muslims have been the target for the last 20 years, since 9/11, they've been target constant. But black people, even with, footballers recently, when Raheem Sterling and some of the footballers, they were kind of going on against the media, because they were highlighting every time they spent, I don't know, a nice car, they were highlighting these individuals are spending so much money, and it was kind of showing a lifestyle only associated to black people. Why couldn't they highlight that to the other superstars, the white counterparts? So I think the media has a big part in highlighting that racial.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because there was this American football player. I remember him, Colin, American football player, Colin. I forgot his surname, but he was taking the knee. He was doing the knee protest a couple of years back. I don't know if you remember or if you recall, but I'm sure some of the viewers will. He plays American football. He was taking the knee, and the NFL tried to, National Football League, whatever, it's like the Premier League in this country, but obviously they didn't like the fact that he kneed every time the anthem was going on, the American national anthem was going on. He took the knee, and it's interesting. There were many black players in that team, and 1 or 2 joined him, right? 1 or 2 joined him. Trump, the biggest racist probably in America right now. And even him, he was like, this guy should be banned. People weren't really supporting him. And it's ironic that, some of the Premier League football teams now, they're also doing the knee protest. And I was thinking, where were you a year ago, 2 years ago, when this guy was making a point? He was taking the knee. He put his career on the line. Where were all of these people? And some of these, black, film stars, rap stars, whatever, football stars, whatever stars, you know, the wealthy, rich and famous, even some of these people didn't support this guy. You know, come forward 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, however many years it's been. There, you know, a lot of these people are now joining this, Black Lives Matter movement. Asians are coming forward, Muslims are coming forward, pink people are coming forward, white people are coming forward, you know, yellow people are coming forward. All the shades of the rainbow are coming forward, sort of thing, right? So why now? You know, why now? What's changed? Is it opportunistic? Is it commercial? Because let's admit it, some of these, even NFL now, they put out a statement. Ironically, not to this thingy Arsenal, but when Ozil supported the Uyghurs, you know, he got told off. But yet today they're supporting Black Lives Movement because they care about human rights all of a sudden. You know, so why now? Is it money? I'm sure it's money because they see a whole movement of people coming forward now. You know, this. In fact, it's actually wrong not to support Black Lives Movement. You know, you're seeing us bad guy. You see, because everyone else is, you know, gearing towards that way. How much of that is playing a part, do you think?
No, I agree with you, but I think coming back to it, as Muslims, as a Muslim, as an individual, you know, when all of this is happening, how do I stand? I mean, the people, the corps, all of them, they're going to do what they're going to do. Now, for me, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. So when I'm talking to my colleagues now, and we're talking about Black Lives Matters, etc., you know, that's when I say, oh, you know what, this is interesting. You do that. Do you know that? Like, you know, that kind of like kneeing, you know, they're like, and I'm showing them videos of how the Israeli police kneeing children, and how they're doing that, and for me, it's given me an opportunity to do some dawah as well, to show people that injustice, you know, this injustice that you are facing, there are people facing everywhere in the world, and I think because the Black Lives Matter is so close to they start to feel a bit, how can I say, not guilty, but not the guilty is not the word, but they're quite what's the word I'm trying to look for, ashamed that actually, how did I stay silent when this was happening, and now all of a sudden I'm jumping up. So for me, the Black Lives Matter is 100% is an opportunity to highlight that Rasulullah Sallallahu highlighted this from offset. You know what you're demoing, what you're doing now, our religion taught this 1400 years ago, you know, and this is the approach. If you look at the flourishing of Islam in all the cities and everything, it didn't differentiate the policies that we put out. If you look at the Sharia, you look at the policies, it's not racist towards anything, you know, it's equal if it's applied accordingly. And it's given me an opportunity to give dawah, but also to challenge the establishment, because it rickles. If you think about their policies, the policies, those racist policies like prevent and all of that, they're racist policies. So when they look at all of those overall policies in the Black Lives Matter, they're going to look back and they think, actually, this falls in this category because it targets. And then you look at all of these other things that are going around in the background that are against Muslims, and from this, we use it as an opportunity, not being opportunistic, but we highlight this because it affects us as well. And of course, we have black Muslims, you know, most probably, you know, the whole of half of Africa is Muslim, you know. So it's like we are standing with our brothers, if that makes sense. Because like we're saying, skin color is not something that is isolated to the white community. We also have it in our own communities, like we talked about it. And I think it's and if you speak with somebody who is dark skinned or black or anything, they will tell you that. They will tell you how they feel racism from the Asians or etc. So it's not just because the white man is doing it, it's we're doing it as well. So this is an opportunity for us to reflect ourselves around our own psyche, challenge our parents on their view, their cultural norms, use the opportunity to give dawah to our colleagues and our counterparts, and to challenge the system with their racist policies.
You know, what's interesting is that obviously Islam from its offset, and you highlighted earlier or the sermon of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said no white is superior to a black, no Arab is superior to a non-Arab, and so on. But when we look at America, 400-year history, they still have statues of these racists, which is so recently in the media. I'm sure you've seen it. It's been torn down. Winston Churchill, one of the prime ministers of this country, they would call him a hero. But this guy himself was a racist. He said during the famine of Bengal, he said, these Bengalis need to stop producing themselves like rabbits, and he withheld food aid. And remember, that time, India, whole of India, Bengal, Bangladesh was part of it. And they didn't feed, and 3 million people died. So, and guess where Winston's, statue is? It's outside the Houses of Parliament. What does that tell you? So is there any hope for people trying to change a system that is racist, inherently, systematically, and let's admit it, some of these people profiteer from this,
I could see that we are coming towards the end of our show. So I think coming back to your question, can we change the system? They plan, Allah plans, and Allah's the best of planners.
Alhamdulillah. What a statement. After that, we probably should end the show with that.
And for me, it's that our as a Muslim, Islam came to defeat all inequalities. It came to bring justice to humankind, fairness, equality, all of those things. And I think for us, I think this is an ideal opportunity to be out there. If we're going out there, I think generally, I think we try to, obviously with the COVID, I think we should respect the law and avoid all of those. But I think in all the different forums, we need to be active. Use this as an opportunity and use this to challenge the establishment. I'm always hopeful that we can change, and the change needs to come from us. And if I'm not going to see it, my hope is that my children, the future generations, will see that change. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Just before we wrap up the show, I've got a story for us, which is known as, it was written in one of the classical, from our classical books. Sorry, I don't have the reference, but nevertheless, the story is this, which is known as the Three Bulls. So there were 3 bulls. They were grazing in grass. There was a red bull, a white bull, and a black bull. And then came a wolf, and he was hungry. And he looked at the 3 bulls and he thought, nah, I can't have them. I can't deal with them, for all 3 of them together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to divide them. And how am I going to do this? I'm going to tell them. So he went up to the white bull and he said, look, I'm hungry. I need to eat one of you. So the red bull and the white bull looked at each other and thought, you know what? You can have the black one. So he chased the black bull all the way around the field until he got tired and he devoured him. For days, weeks went, however long it went, it came back again. And this time he went up to the white bull again and he said, look, I'm hungry. So fearing for himself, saving himself, he thought, you can have the red one. So he chased him and he ate him. A few weeks went, and then this time he didn't even speak to the white bull. He just devoured him straight because he thought one-on-one, you're nothing for me. It just took him apart. And then the white bull, he said something at the moment of death. He said, I was eaten the day my black brother bull was eaten. So from this story, what we can learn is many lessons, really. The bulls are actually human races, if you want to call it, different colors. What Shaitan does, he seeks to divide us. He seeks to put enmity between us. And we have many Shaitans also, devils running around in society that are trying to divide people, trying to put these inferior, ideas in our head, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the highest of the high, he does not look at skin color. So who are we to look at skin color? He looks at deeds. He looks at the deeds of people. So just before we close off, any last remarks from you, Brother Junaid?
No, I think you summed it up and wrapped it up quite eloquently, mashallah. And I think there's a lot of lessons from that. The fact that we use this as an opportunity to stick by our Muslim brothers, support them, and remain active, and most importantly, have trust and tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you. So, Jazakallah khair. So with that, we're going to close. We're going to end the show. If you've got any comments you want to leave behind you could leave that on our YouTube channel, on suggestions on how to improve the show, what kind of things you want us to talk about, any improvements and so on. You can leave your comments on YouTube. And with that, inshallah, we'll leave it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If you want me to change my hairstyle, if you want Brother Nasir is on, I don't know. Any comments would welcome, brothers.
Anyway, okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mr. Director, are you there?